EmpowerYou Podcast is devoted to bringing real-world wisdom and encouragement to our listeners. We discuss a multitude of life principles and the process from an economic, cultural, and societal perspective. We believe that through tough conversations and shared wisdom, we can pave the path and leave a ladder for the future. Subscribe to our channel and let us empower you. What is going on? What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome, episode 68, which is the third season for EmpowerYou Podcast. My name is Kidboy Cooper, and I am your host, the founder, the creator of EmpowerYou Podcast. So EmpowerYou Podcast is my baby, and I love it, and I hope you do too. So we're going to get started with an interview here. I'm going to get a couple of things set up real quick. Get my little name tag up there. We got a really, really awesome show for you guys coming up here. So let me make sure we are good. If you are online now, I want you to go ahead and share this with somebody. Share it with somebody. Okay? We're going to have a really great discussion here. All right. All right. Let's see here. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. So for this episode of EmpowerYou Podcast, we're going to be talking about education versus leadership. The entire goal of this season is to kind of broaden our understanding of what education is and what it means and how it looks, right? And so to me, I think education has a lot of different facets to it, but I'm not an educator, right? And so I figure I should bring in some really amazing minds together so that we can talk about this topic in a way that is super comprehensive and that makes a lot of sense. So I can't wait for this next guest. All right, so here we go. So today we are speaking with a CEO, a youth and parent consultant, a small business consultant, a guy I've known since I was a child who has just grown up to do some incredible things, not only in his community, but as a businessman and as a true resource for families and young people. And I'm so glad that he's able to be with us today. It's going to be an amazing episode, and I just can't wait to dive in. Okay, so what I want you all to do is go ahead and click like, click share, subscribe, like all those things, because I want you to engage in this conversation so that you can be a part of this dialogue. Go ahead and send your comments in, anything that you think is pertinent. Go ahead and send it in. Would love to hear your thoughts on it as we dive into this topic. Okay. All right. So our guest for today is CEO, educational consultant, founder of a small business that is helping thousands of families, Quentin Harris. Quentin, how you doing, man? Let's get you on screen here. And there we go. Here we go.
Awesome.
There you go. What's up, man? How are you?
Man, I'm well. Can't complain. I appreciate that, that amazing intro.
Man, you're doing it, man. You're doing it, bro. I mean, it's been great to watch you on social media, and I've been celebrating your wins from afar, man. So I'm really hyped to have you here, brother.
I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate this opportunity to be able to do this work, man. Any opportunity to get out here and really be able to enlighten an audience, enlighten our families, and enlighten young people, I'm all for it. So good job, good work that you're doing here. Keep up the great work. Happy to be able to support.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I would love for you to take a couple moments and kind of tell us about what you do, and kind of your path and a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with my formal career before I kind of go into the work that I've built, because that's what's led me to this point. And so it's interesting. The topic is education versus leadership, because it was indeed working in education that led me into much of the leadership roles that I have. But, man, the journey started, I would say, about 14 years ago, working at the Southside YMCA over on 63rd and Stony. And, somebody saw something in me. And so what that led to was an opportunity to start working in education. And, I had 2 years of school done at that point. And so I went in through the Illinois State Board of Education. At the time, what we called a paraprofessional license. I got my endorsement. That allowed me to work in special education in school. So, it started as simple as that, man. And just putting my all into working with one kid. And so the very first kid that I worked with had a learning disability. He communicated through a machine. I forget the company that makes it, but was not able to formally speak. He knew a little bit of sign language, and intelligent kid, but of course he had that learning disorder. So my role was to just get him throughout his school day. I was with him all the time, but also working with just socializing him. And so that was my introduction into education, was special ed. And I stuck with that work for quite some time. I went from the University of Chicago charter schools to working for the now Acero schools. It was UNO charter school network back then, but now there's Acero. Came back over to University of Chicago, and then I spent a little time out here in the suburbs in Bellwood, where I currently live, working for a Christian school called Mecca Elementary. And so that was the path. Started as the para, moved into being a special ed apprentice teacher. During that time, I went back to school. I hadn't finished my complete undergrad yet, so I went and finished my undergrad at Concordia University. Took 6 months off and went right back to start my master's program, which I wrapped up about 3 years ago in 2018. I did a master's in organizational leadership from Concordia as well. And so through those experiences is what led me to some of the work that I've currently been doing, which about a year ago now, we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary. I launched Hybrid Focus Consulting. And Hybrid Focus Consulting, the name, it speaks for itself. Hybrid Focus, we have multi-focuses. The first focus is to empower families and to empower communities. And the second focus is to empower small business. And so the reason why those two goes hand in hand, if you look at the data, roughly between 45% to 50% of jobs come through small business. But yet we know that the opportunity is very, very small when we look at Black and brown businesses, when we look at venture capital, getting the funds that a lot of our businesses need to get running and off the ground. The resources are far and few in between. And so for me, my goal is to, on one end, uplift small businesses, help them scale. I have an eye for logistics, and so I can come in and look at your model and be able to say, hey, here's some things that we can tighten up to get to this goal. And we measure that and we see what was efficient about it and what was not, and we keep moving. And then from the other side, we empower families, we empower church leaders, we empower community leaders to make sure that they're having all the resources that they need to, one, help their young people excel. And so it's a twofold process that eventually will meet. And so, I have short-term, long-term goals, but ultimately, after maybe a decade of this work, I would like to see some of the businesses that I've been help scale also employ some of the families that I'm working with their young people. So that is the vision. And then,
that's amazing.
And so that was about a year ago. And, JQLR, I'm the COO and I'm the founder of JQLR, which stands for Just Quick Little Runs. It's a Chicago-based rental car company that uses Turo as a platform. And so I started Turo, man, 3 years ago to subsidize my car note, man. It was as simple as I paid my car note off. It was the first car I ever paid off. And I'm like, you know what? I want another car. It had been a couple months. So I'm like, I really don't want to pay a car note. I'm like, I've gotten used to, this few hundred being in my pocket every month. And so I was like, how can I get a new car and not pay the note? And so I did my research. I had a friend who had a friend who was also on Turo. He's like, hey, man, my buddy does this Turo thing. Look it up. So I did my research, and, I took a leap of faith. It was a risk, and I put my car on Turo, and here we are 3 years later. I've scaled it, post-pandemic. I partnered with my brother and best friend from high school, and we have a fleet of 14 cars now, and, we're doing some great things, and it's really growing exponentially. I'm looking to be at 20 cars by year's end and maybe 50 cars by the end of 2022.
Wow, man. That is incredible. I love the ingenuity of the way that you're thinking about, how you moving through space. You know what I'm saying? Like it because we're multifaceted beings, right? So, there are so many different interests that we can occupy, and not everybody can do more than one thing simultaneously. And so I think it's really awesome what you're doing, especially with families and empowering families to not only start small businesses, but then to employ other people from that same community. And it just reinforces the circulation of the dollar, which ultimately really builds communities. So I think
Absolutely.
that's just incredible what you're doing, man. Do you think
I appreciate it.
do you what made you want to get into that kind of work? I mean, doing anything with quote special ed students, it sounds way more challenging, right? Would you think that you took a more challenging approach to working with students, or do you think it's just kind of par for the course for you?
No, I took the opportunity, and somebody saw something in me, and I was a young man who I came up. My father was around. We didn't spend a whole lot of time together, and by the time I was about 15, my dad and my mom split, and so there was a void for me from an affirmation standpoint. So I had these talents. There'd be a talent here, a talent there. A mental talent, a physical talent. It was a lot of different talents that I had, but no affirmation. And so, there was no one there to say, hey, you need to take this, don't bury that talent. You need to, craft it. You need to water it. You need to really, make sure that you, work with it. And so I had just been taught, to just give my all, but I really didn't know how to manifest and really grow the talents that I had. It took somebody to see that in me and say, hey, this is a gift. You need to really work on that thing. And because it was someone who I looked up to, it really allowed me to, like, okay, well, I'll try, and so that there came
Yeah.
the opportunity. And there I was working with this young man who many had, struggled to work with. The mom really wasn't, content with the level of care that he was getting prior to that. And to be able to step into that, it took a lot of patience, but that's something that I believe that I've been gifted with. I have a lot of patience, and so I think that was one of God's gifts to me is to be able to navigate that. And it's funny, I always tell folks I have patience with young people. I don't have a lot of patience with adults, and so I've been able to work with young people without an issue. And so I was like, man, but yeah, that's really where it started. It started with an opportunity.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. And those small things, right? The things that don't necessarily look the greatest at first, can really turn into just an incredible lifestyle and impact for so many people. And your education, is what prepared you for that. And the how can I say, the character to continue to give your all to a situation, no matter the size of the opportunity, really it ultimately makes or breaks whatever opportunity you do have. Do you feel like the principle of giving your all, do you think that was reinforced through your education, or do you think that kind of carried you through your education?
Um, it carried me through, and I say that because there are certain things that need to be instilled in you, at an early age. And so, these are some of the principles that my mom instilled. And it's funny, I started off my early 20s starting a lot of ventures that I didn't finish.
Mm,
And it's, this old scripture, I know your parents instilled this into you, but you train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he will not depart. I think it's Proverbs 22:5, if I'm quoting it right. But um all of those little ventures that I kind of started off in my 20s and never finished, before I turned 30, I completed those things. And so
nice.
it didn't take anybody to come tell me. It's almost like something woke up at a certain period of time where it was like, hey man, it's time for you to take some of these things serious. And a lot of that came from just simply the role modeling that my mom did for me as a young person, and really just some of the things that it was a non-negotiable for her. And so those things that she implemented and planted to us young, as I got older, they just started to come up as I matured. It's almost like, man, that seed just sprouted. It's like, whoa, where'd that come from? But that was just something that was instilled at a young age. So I would say, it was more so that it was there already. And then as I started to get these opportunities, it was that idea of, man, what would my mom say, or what would this individual say if I mess up this? I got to give everything I got. And so yeah, part of it was, doing it because I got on, but there's always been a part of me that I'm competitive. And so I've always wanted to make sure that I put my best foot forward. So, there's not many things, even the things that I didn't finish, I did it at a high level until I stopped. And when I picked it back up, I kept it going. And so yeah.
That's dope, man. You said train up a child in the way you should go. Those founding scriptures, man, that all of us recited. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So do you think we're talking about, leadership versus education, and leadership, I don't, I'm not an educator. I'll put that out first, which is why it's so important that we have these dialogues with educators and people in the educational space. And to me, what I notice, even about your story is the fact that you used your leadership skills and used education as a tool. And so to me, I often think that, leadership is more of a priority than education, right? Because you have to have the wherewithal to carry the responsibility, whether you're educated or not. And as a leader, to think through things, it takes more than just book smarts. But and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Like, how do you feel like education impacts your life? And or do you think that your leadership abilities and your character traits are more of a catalyst to success than education?
That's a good question. And so the way that I'm gonna kind of talk about the two, I see leadership as a way of being. All right. And so leadership is something that that can be maybe seen, or it can be felt, but maybe not necessarily, touched. Whereas education, in many ways, I feel like is more tangible. For example, I take a cooking class. At the end of that cooking class, I'll probably know how to make a meal better than what I could before. Leadership is one of those things, in my opinion, that you have to grow into. You know what I mean? It's in the same way that you have to spend, 16 weeks to get those credit hours that you need. Leadership is not something that a person just wakes up and have. They can have leadership traits, but those things still have to be tried and true, or tried and tested, in order to be seen if that's something that's true. And so I also believe that before you can lead, you truly have to understand how to follow. Because in order to lead, you have to be able to, in many ways, to predict the need of the people that you're leading, and you have to be able to accept the feedback from the people that you're leading. And so at some point while you're following, there's going to be feedback that's coming to you from a leadership perspective, and being able to take that criticism and being able to apply that criticism will put you in a space where one day you will be able to lead and be able to give that same level of feedback and constructive criticism, but also be able to take it. And so I don't know that I would say one is more important than the other, because in the time that I've had to lead, I've also had to continue learning. And so even with these two, the two orgs that I've started now with Hybrid Focus and JQLR, I'm leading those efforts, but there's times when I have to stop and say, okay, this is something I'm not familiar with. I need to continue to build my craft. And in order to continue leading effectively, I do need to educate myself. And so I think that the two go hand in hand. I don't know that they sit in separate buckets, but I can understand where, leadership is important, but I don't think that it separates fully from being educated, because educated it can be looked at as so many different things. You have systematic learning, formal learning like school, universities, but you also have education that comes through experience. I travel a lot. And so the most recent place I traveled to was Costa Rica. I had an experience there that helped me as a leader, but it took me further in knowledge. And so I think that those two things go hand in hand.
Right. So maybe it's not. So you said it's not so much that they are different as much as they are interlaced. In order to be one, you have to be the other.
Yeah,
In
I
order to
think
be
there's a definite.
yeah, in order to be an effective leader, you have to continue to educate yourself so you can anticipate the needs of the people that you're leading, rather than just assuming that your leadership ability can carry you the whole way. I think that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Do you have any favorite leaders that you try to embody, that you try
Wow.
to that you look up to, or that you instruct your students or the people that you're consulting with? Do you have like a group of leaders that you just kind of quote and read up on?
Absolutely. So I think about leaders. You have leaders who are gone and who we've studied over the course of history, and then you have leaders who are still alive. So like thinking in retrospect, um, even thinking back to the civil rights days, Malcolm X, and one of the reasons why I appreciate Malcolm X's journey so much is one of the things that I believe that education does is it stretches your comfort zone, but it also education also challenges your way of thinking. And we know Malcolm X's story of how he converted to Muslim, and he had to really challenge his own way of thinking, and he had to be okay with what that looked like, and that takes embracing education, and so and not being in your own way. In order to lead, you can't be in your own way, and so that's the one thing I preach
Mm,
about education, because in many times it challenges your way of thinking, it stretches your comfort zone. If you're in your own way, you'll be sitting here looking at facts that are as pure as gold, and you won't be able to accept them because you're in your own way. And so
yeah.
I really appreciate his story, because he was able to challenge his own thinking and stay out of his own way to move forward. And as a result of that, look how many people he impacted. So that I really appreciate his story. Another person who comes to mind is Henry T. Ford. And the reason why I appreciate him is because uh, I was reading about him, and Henry Ford put people around him who knew what they were doing. And so there were many times when, there'd be something that he did not know, and he would place the people around him who was able to fortify him. So he knew what his weaknesses were. So he puts those people around him. And so I think that he is someone, and the reason I say that is because us as entrepreneurs, at times, um, we have the ability to shoot ourselves in the foot by trying to do everything. It's like, man, it's like, hey, I got to get this done. I got to get that done. And we don't want to outsource anything. I can do it myself. And so we have to be willing to surround ourselves with those people who can do that job well also, and allow us to move. And that was one of the things that truly helped me to be able to scale my business, was putting the people around me who could do the job better than I could and trust them to do it. And so that made me better as a leader, because I was able to focus on the areas that I was strong at and trust my team. And so those are two people who have passed on, who I look up to. But then there are people who are still living who I hold in high esteem, as far as who are leaders. My current supervisor, I think that he's an outstanding leader, Dr. Greg Jones. He's taken and moved our organization, in the 3 years that he's been there, to some phenomenal places. My brother is someone who I look up to. I believe that he's a phenomenal leader. A lot of the learning and the moves I've made has really come from some of the teachings and some of the modeling that he has done. And so those are two people who, I in today's point in time, I would say I definitely look up to, and I lean on them for wisdom. And so there's others out there. There are authors out there who I truly enjoy. I love Robert Greene's books, The Art of War, 48 Laws of Power. Like, he's written some really good literature. There are others out there who I listen to as well, that I think, um, have those good leadership traits, and I like sucking in what they put out.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I like how you said that. It's just the humility that it takes to be a leader, is a it seems like it is a manifestation of your ability to learn, right? So you can't learn effectively without acknowledging that you don't know everything,
Yeah.
and so I think that's really great. I know for myself, I tend to occupy that same place as far as like putting people around me or seeking out information from people who I know are more skilled in a certain area. And it did, it took education. So yeah, it took education to get me out of that space because, I came up from an entrepreneurial perspective. Everything was about the hustle, how well I could get something done, how quick I can get something done, how lean I could live until I got whatever it was accomplished. And I'm as I grow and educate myself, right? I'm learning like that's not what CEOs do. That's not what real founders are doing. That's what a lot of entrepreneurs are doing. And if you circle around on social media, you'll see a lot of hustling, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not what real CEOs are doing. They're building out strategies that allow them to work less. And I didn't understand that for a long time. It's actually taking a lot of unlearning at this level of business and mental and personal growth, because I feel like I was leaning so much at one point on education. I'm the type of person who loves systems, right? Like I love
Yeah.
learning new things. And so I would assume that because I knew this thing, that was gonna, net me some kind of result. But that's not
Mm.
necessarily what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the application
Applied
of that
knowledge.
thing. Yeah, yeah, it's the applied knowledge, which goes back to your leadership, and so that's why I'm like, okay, so maybe I don't need to know everything. Maybe I just need to take the tools I have and just implement like crazy, and so it is interesting listening to the way that you are talking about leadership and education and the roles that they play, because I've been extremes on both sides, like
Mm-hmm.
all hustle, saying all education, and sometimes they're not feasible to do that way. You know what I'm saying? You really got to mix the two, and it takes a lot of unlearning to actually mix them correctly, which is kind of
Yeah.
where I'm at.
And it's funny, and you saying that, I've known that you've been doing this podcast for some time, and I realized like, wow, you're on episode 68. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I'm like, man, he's been doing this a minute. I'm like, all right, I can remember when he first got this thing going on. And so now, let's think about your process. Let's think
Right.
about episode 10 to episode 20 to maybe episode 35. It's now episode 68. There's been some leading that you had to do, but there's probably been gaps
Right.
when you had to learn. Like, maybe the
Yeah.
software isn't best for me. Maybe I need a new mic. Let me watch this YouTube video over here and educate myself on how to, fix some of the feedback, whatever it may be that comes
Yeah.
in the process of doing the podcast. But it wasn't all leading. There was portions where you led the work, but then there was portions where you had to take a step back and like, ain't nothing wrong with the leading. Like that's on point. I need to figure out how to do this better, so
Right.
my overall product is better, right? And
Yeah.
so, and as you scale, that could look like something completely different. It could look like, oh man, I need to get a producer. I need to stop doing this because I need to put my time elsewhere. I need to put time into learning what the next phase of my business looks like. So I need to do a producer to make sure that he's doing, all this behind the scenes. Yeah, it may be an investment, but this is where we have to understand our worth,
Yeah,
right?
bro.
And so I'll give you the perfect example with JQLR. I'm the brains behind the business.
Yeah.
I can't be driving cars back and forth to Midway. I can't be driving cars back and forth to O'Hare. That's a job that I delegate out to my drivers. They're making a decent wage, but I'm more valuable than that. Nothing to them,
Right.
but I'm the brain behind the outfit. And so if I was trying to constantly stay in the driver's seat and do this, I would never be able to scale. Did it cost me to pay them? Absolutely. I have overhead, but that overhead is now being able to allow me to think, okay, it's my overhead. How do I expand my profit zone? You see what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah.
there is, and I have to learn now, hiring somebody is allowing me to learn how to do that. And so my time is being used a lot more efficiently. I'm not overworked. I had a driver last night. I had my son. Driver last night came 9, had to make a run to Midway, sent them a lift to go pick up a car on the north side, and they came. So if I would have had to do that, man, I'd been beat up today. And
Yeah.
so, they made good money, but I also had my peace of mind, and I was able to be clear today to do the things that I need to do to keep those things growing. And so they are hand in hand, man. And so you absolutely right.
Man, you talking that talk, man. You talking that time worth formula, man. That was a hard thing for me to do, man. I'm in this entrepreneurship group. It's called Client Attraction University. They're fantastic, brilliant folks, man. And they had us do a time worth formula, and
Mhm.
really kind of break down the amount of that your time is worth. And so
Yep.
it really just opened my eyes to a lot of things. And it is that investment, right? Because again, I'm having to unlearn a lot of the education that I had, as just, somebody with a skill set and who was just out here doing, your solopreneur type deal. And now I'm
Mm,
like, bro, how, just like you were saying, it's like, how do I scale this bigger? How do I do more? How do I have more impact with less personal involvement? Well, I got to get an editor. I got to get this. I got to get that, because I can really scale this product out. But I got to invest in the tools to make that
yeah.
happen, which means, my leadership abilities got to grow, and I got to sit at somebody's feet to learn that. So, man, you're right on point, man. I have really been through this process, have really just learned a lot, because again, I can be really extreme, man. Like I'm like heavy one way or the other. and, and so I'm learning to just, like chill a little bit more and be like, all right, you got to delegate these things. I still go through like all the emotions, and so it's definitely a learning process, which is fun, man. Which is really fun. It's stressful, but
Can
it's
be
fun,
absolutely.
man.
It's a good
Yeah,
stress. It can be a good as
absolutely.
long as you allow it to be a good stress. It definitely can be. Uh, one of the things you said is you can be on both sides a lot of times, and so there's a saying you can be a jack of all trades is a master of none.
That's right.
And one of the things that I have my hands in a lot of pots, you know what I mean? And so and you said at the beginning, like, what gives you the ability to multitask is one is, and this goes back to Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power. One of the things that he taught in that book is to plan all the way to the end. And
Yeah.
so he gives the analogy of a warrior. He was a general, and he had the upper hand on this general, but he didn't plan all the way to the end. He didn't think all his things through, and in the end, he ended up meeting defeat, to a less than general. And so, because the other general planned all the way to the end, like he thought about every single scenario, every single path that could be taken, and had an alternative for each. And so when we apply that to our business, how far out are we truly planning our business goals? Are we planning them just for 6 months? Are we planning them a year out? Are we setting a vision that is lasting over a decade? You know what I mean? You may not be able
Yeah.
to, you're not tapping into your 5 right away, but if you're operating with a sense that in 5 years, this is where I want to be, in between those, you're going to realize, like, okay, in order for me to do that, I got to check this off, or I got to check this off. And
Mm.
so it allows you to balance between when I need to learn something new, when do I need to leave, when do I need to hand something off so I can take on a new bucket of work. And so if we plan more effectively, I truly think that it'll help folks reach the balance of where, they're leading and they're getting the proper education, and they're getting the right balance of that.
Yeah. Do you think we're as a society, do you think we're too heavy-handed in one way or the other? You think we got too many gurus out here, or too many universities, or too much, like rhetoric about education? I think to me, I think young people need other alternatives. I think skill sets are super important, and we gotta employ people's skill sets. Because you got folks, and I'm sure you see some of this with the youth that you work with, who are really, really gifted in certain areas. And then there's other things that they're just not good at, nor should they necessarily have to be, right? It's not a super essential function. We just push it on them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think so to answer the first part of your question, I think that we live in a society that is ruled by instant gratification.
Mm,
And so what we forget is that, you know, we were able to go live. People were able to see this live, but you're gonna be able to cut this, give them snippets, and be able to drop the same episode next week. You see what I'm saying? Like there's a matter of right away that we have in this society where, folks are able to, get there, they able to get on the phone and have the food is ready before they, get to the restaurant. They can come pick it up and they can go. We're not at a place in the society where there's a lot of things that we have to wait on anymore. And so we expect that same result with our businesses. We expect that same result with learning. We expect that same result with our investments. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's just not the reality of it. Anything that's worth having is going to take a little bit of grit and a little bit of grind. You know what I'm saying? That, that if the food is that easy to make, it's probably not that good for you. The meal's a little bit tougher to make. More than likely, it's probably have a little bit more. And so, I say that to say, and I use my brother as an example a lot. He's been an entrepreneur now for, practically a decade. But if I think about his journey, the man wrote anywhere from 4 years worth of blogs before he got a radio show. And then when he got the first radio show, there was no compensation for it. He was on a Saturday night, the time when nobody would listen. And he ran with that for a couple of years. And then they moved him to Sunday mornings. But as a result, there were different things due to the consistency and the constant chopping away at it that has led to him, having an amazing executive coaching firm that has led him to be able to lead, a transformational tour every year, like all these things that he's built. And so, using him as that model, what I'm saying? Like, that took some time. That didn't happen overnight. It wasn't no instant gratification in that journey. But see, what happens is, like a lot of times now, people call me all the time asking about Turo. People, man, will hit me like crazy, inboxing me, hey, give me a call. And then this is the thing, anybody listening to this, so you can get it firsthand, you have to ask, why would I give you a call? You see what I'm saying? Like, people will put in my inbox, hey, here's my number. I got a few questions about Turo. When you get time, give me a call. Like, are you serious? No, that's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? Like, you reach out, you book a time, you know what I'm saying? I'll give you the free consultation. And then for anything else, because this did not happen overnight. If you're truly interested in Turo, if you're truly interested in building that, you're going to be willing to put in the 2 to 3 years of work that I did to get to this particular point. Now, your path may not have to take that long because I have the formula. So that's why you pay. You know what I mean? To get that formula.
Tell them, man.
People want the handout. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's just not how the ball game works. You know what I'm saying? My time is more valuable than that. And so, and this is what I tell them. I'm like, hey, this is what you need to think about when you come to the consultation. Have all this information ready. Text me when you're ready. I'll schedule you for that 15 minutes. Nobody ever really reaches back out because in my mind, they're not truly serious. They want the cheat card. And to true success, there is no cheat card. And so let me not say to sustainable success.
Ooh.
There is no cheat card. Because you can be successful in the moment, but to sustainable success, there is no cheat card. And so, that's the thought, man. Like, we live in an instant gratification age, and people want that dopamine hit right away. They want that hit, and we got to be able to control that hit if you're going to be a leader and you're going to build a business. That's just the reality. You got to control that dopamine hit. You got to understand that it's going to come gradually until it comes abundantly.
Right. That makes so much sense. What you said, that this, I don't think, and you said it so well, in order to get someplace fast, in order to actually have, because we love the instant gratification, right? We love the idea of, I'm going to just get it done. Getting it done like that involves real expert help, education. You could get it done super fast, but it's going to cost you some investment, and it's going to cost you all of that attention that you spend in everywhere else. Yep. Like here lately, I've been unsubscribing from email lists, from communities, because I'm trying to dial in to one thing, because it don't do me no good to listen to people capping online. Yeah, it doesn't do me any good to hang out with people who, and I don't mean to like, be dissing anybody, but I feel like I'm growing into a level of not only entrepreneurship, but just self-development that is beyond some of these groups. Mm-hmm. So you gotta move up. You know what I'm saying? And that takes more investment. It takes more time. It takes more focus. And I think that's one of the things that's a disconnect. Just like you said, that people don't understand. It's like, you want to move fast, which is fine, but you gotta be tapped into the right thing, and you gotta be all in. Don't hit me up like, oh man, I didn't know it was gonna be all this. It's like, what did you think it was gonna be?
No, that's
Like,
real, man. That is so true. And environment is everything. One of the things I did this about 2 years ago, I made this shift. A wise man once told me that you are a reflection of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So
that's
you
right.
go through your phone, you look at who the people you have the most conversation with, who you spending the most time with. You're a reflection of that crew. And so that can go from that to our social media. I would challenge folks to go into your followers if you're on Instagram, Snap, whatever you're on. But Instagram is the platform that I probably use the most. Go into your follower feed, and it'll give you the 50 that you look at the most and the 50 that you look at the least. And I'll tell you the same thing. Look at that 50 that you're looking at the most, and that's what you're absorbing. Then look at your screen time. Like, that's what you're absorbing. That is the content that you're eating. And so one of the things that I did to alter that is I looked at that 50 and I'm like, man, if this doesn't align with my purpose or what it is that I want to be or what it is that I want to reflect, it's time for it to be unfollowed. And then I replaced them with things like the Brand Startup or entrepreneurs who are putting out content about how to, run a successful business. So my timeline has been now replaced with nothing but positive energy, education around the field that I'm in. You know what I mean? Leaders who are going to challenge me to stretch my comfort zone. That's what my timeline is filled up with. I'm changing my environment. Yeah. By changing my environment, I stay uncomfortable because everybody I look at on a day-to-day basis is killing the game. They're killing the game. It's no time for, the woe is me attitude. There's no time for, but if only I had this. No. You got to pull it up by the bootstraps, man. It's about going out there. Nobody is going to get it for you. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody cares. You know what I'm saying? If you don't care, nobody else cares. And so until, you would have never reached out, or we would have never made this happen if I didn't care about my craft. You saw the energy that I put into my craft. Yeah. And when you reached out, I looked at like, man, Kidway putting a lot of energy into this. Like, he's passionate about this. I'm going to support him. You see what I'm saying? But absolutely, if we wasn't on the same wavelength as far as the respect that we was giving our own craft, we wouldn't even met here. You see what I'm saying? And so that's absolutely what people, they'll come to you like, hey, man, we got a link. And you looking at the energy that they put into their own, like, no, I'm not reflective of that type of energy. Yeah, and so we have to surround ourselves with the environment that we want to be in. So I want to be in the upper echelon than what I am now. So I only surround myself with people who's in that. There's no point in me surrounding. Now, does that mean I can't reach down and lend a hand to somebody? Absolutely not. But I have to see that you are serious about what it is that you're doing. And consistency will show that.
Bro, consistency is a lot, man. And I think that's one of them. I think that's a leadership trait, right? I think education is great, but consistency and consistent implementation of the applied knowledge that you have, or the knowledge that you have, it just makes all the difference, and for myself, as I have continued with this podcast and continue to reach out to people, and it gives me an opportunity, one, to control the type of energy that I have, right? Because I get to create something that is bigger than myself. All of these are free. The entire reason I created EmpowerYou Podcast was because I wanted to create an environment where people could binge really great content, usable content, content that really impact them in a positive way. Because I remember how I wasn't Gary. I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have a lot of people that I was looking up to, and I was thankful for my family and things like that. But I didn't look around and I wasn't, super inspired by anybody, and I was like, how many other young Black boys are walking around super uninspired? The only thing they are inspired by is material things, not because that's the only thing that they're excited about, because no one has presented them with other alternatives, with other things that are interesting, with other things that, employ some type of integrity that inspires them. I think, as humans, we need that energy, And so for instance, I went to this mastermind group in Atlanta,
Okay.
and there were two like so the founder of this company, he works with this group called Next Level Boys Academy, and they do some incredible stuff for Black boys, like omitting like thousands of years of prison sentencing through this program. It's just
Mm,
wild. And he had two of the young men that he brought and hung out in this mastermind. I'm talking like legit, millionaires in this room, super humble, super chill, all chopping up numbers, all just talking, and figuring it out. You don't walk out of that room and then go back to wherever you at and not be, you know what I'm saying, not be changed. And it's just exposure. They didn't do anything. Nobody, it's just environment, just like you were saying, and I think creating things like this podcast, even the documentation that you do about your craft, those are inspiring. Like you don't have to fall into some of these pitfalls just in order to do well for yourself or to enjoy some things in your life. And I think the narrative that we've been fed so often, how we've been educated to think about ourselves, is not positive. It's constantly laden with false ideas about who we are and what we do, what we like. So I
yeah,
think that the way you're talking about controlling your environment, and self-educating through the positive associations that you have, that's
absolutely.
huge, man. That's huge. What's a main thing you wish a lot of young people and anybody who's listening to this podcast would understand about their education, and how to apply that in a as a leader of their own life?
Knowledge is free, and you know, it's anything. I'm very well traveled. I've been to, I'll say now, about 12 countries. I think the only continent I haven't been to is Antarctica, which that can wait a little bit. But but you know, in doing so, a lot of people like, man, you don't ever I never see you with tour guides. You don't use a travel agent. Why is that? Well, there's this thing called the internet where I can go read blogs of backpackers and people, who take these trips. And, my recent trip was to Costa Rica. I read up on Costa Rica for about 6 hours. Just, if you look at the articles, the different things that I read, reading about the different towns and where I wanted to go, and just truly getting a understanding of what it is that I was getting myself into. And so by the time I got there, I was more than comfortable driving halfway across the country in a car. You know what I'm saying? And through the mountains. And because I understood what it was that was ahead of me, because I
Right.
prepared myself. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting a tour guide, but you're paying them to facilitate something that, you won't have. I have that knowledge now. Nobody can take that away from me. I can forever go to Costa Rica unless there's some, governmental shift. I can forever go there and that knowledge will remain. And so in going through it myself, it's taking me one step closer. So that was just one example as far as traveling, but knowledge is free. If I truly, if I wanted to change courses right now and just say something random like, hey man, I want to learn how to be a medical doctor. Something as crazy as wild as that. While school is expensive, I
Right.
can go and buy every book that those same doctors are reading. Now,
Yeah.
the application part may not necessarily be there. Is the app applying that knowledge is a lot different. But as far as going to obtain it, man, there's not too much that we can't go obtain or at least learn about and get some extensive knowledge in, and pay for it. Most things we can go and learn for free in this society. And by taking that, you'll learn how to apply it. Opportunities will come to apply it if it's something that you're interested in. So that's something I really want young people to know. If you're passionate about something, don't wait on anybody to give you the opportunity. Go do
Yeah.
what you got to do for yourself. And in doing so, I truly believe in energy in the universe and attracting those things to you. We have the ability to speak things into existence. And so much of what it is that I do is truly just speaking things into existence. And I have to be careful of saying if. So like the whole idea of, my goal was 20 cars by the end of this year. My goal is 20 cars by the end of this year. Granted, there is no major setbacks. I will get to 20 cars by the end of this year. I am putting that into the universe. Sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable to put things into the universe, because there is part of us, like you said, there's going to be doubts there. The way we've been programmed and many times have been to doubt our own abilities. But we have to challenge ourselves. And so, that is my push to the young people. Don't ever stop challenging yourself, and don't ever think that all knowledge, you don't have to pay for it. Facilitated knowledge, you have to pay for it. But just going to get it, the systematic learning and the formal learning, those things you're going to have to pay for. But the reality of it is, hey, you can go on YouTube, and I'm a painter. I paint people's homes. You can go on YouTube and watch a painter paint and learn how to paint on YouTube. There's a variety, almost everything, any trade, any skill set can be learned without paying for it. But if you want it to be facilitated, that you have to pay for it. So don't let anything or anyone make you think that you can't reach for what it is that you want to reach.
Right. And you'll learn enough to know if you really want to do this before you start paying anybody to learn. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing. What's one of the big hurdles that you encountered while you were implementing, right? You said, like, when you were in your late 20s, you going into your 30s, and you having some mental shifts, that comes with a lot of different separation, a lot of grief, and I say grief because there's aspects of yourself as you grow up that you just have to let go of. There's parts of yourself that you have to mature out of. And I think we're really tight, right? We learn to survive using these emotional and mental constructs. And so I think we run into that a lot of times, especially as we get older. We're like, oh man, I've done this for years. This is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, man, that's not serving you anymore. So what was the main thing you had to allow to let go of, because it wasn't serving you, that enabled you to level up? Because before we get to this thought exercise, I know, because I understand the power of resistance, right? The moment you get some great information, you go try to implement, you're going to be met with resistance. So I don't want people to jump off this live, or to get off this video, or to turn off this podcast and go try to implement, and then they're going to run into something and they be like, see, them brothers is lying. They ain't, you know what I'm saying? Like, because that's what'll happen, right? The resistance will get in your head and be like, you never should have tried this. You need to just go back to chilling with your people, blah, blah, blah. You ain't meant for this, blah, 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 which is just blatantly not true. So tell me something that you encountered that you had to get over, that you had to let go of, that you had to separate yourself from, that perhaps our listeners are going to run into, and that they need to be aware of when they go try to implement the education and the leadership that it takes to be the next version of themselves.
So that's really good. And the main hurdle, and I think that a lot of people deal with this hurdle, is we have to get away from caring what other people think. We have to get away from it. And the reason why I say that is because the more and more you get to your success and the goal points that you want to get, the more and more you're leaving the vast majority of the crowd. You're leaving the 90%ers, right? And so the more strides that I take forward, the distance that I'm seeing that is being created, and I'm gonna be honest, with this distance is being created, if I cared what other people were thinking, or if I cared about, like, oh, this person now, this person this, I would have not even started to really make, that transition. We have to stop caring what other people think. Now, to the point about resistance, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
That's right.
So for the people who are listening who think like, oh, well, how can I avoid it? You won't avoid it. The question is, can you predict it? As leaders, we have to be visionaries, right? As leaders, we have to be able to envision where it is that we want to be. And we also have to predict our pitfalls. We have to predict the things that are going to get in our way. So no different than you're listening to this right now. And if there's been pieces of nuggets that you've been able to take out of this, take that nugget and say, okay, I want to apply this nugget, but what could my potential hurdle be for this thing? And predict what the resistance is going to be. So that way, when the resistance comes, you're not looking at it like, oh my God, resistance. You're looking like, hey, I've been waiting on you. You see what I'm saying? It's a difference
Yeah.
because then you're ready to take it head on. If we walk out of this thing acting as if there won't be any resistance, and of course, as soon as it hits you, go, see, this is why I can't do it. But if you embrace the fact that there will always be resistance, you'll always be stretching your comfort zone, then as soon as you step out of this, you're looking for it now. You're looking for the bully. The bully gonna be a little bit more resistant to run up on you if you come looking for him. Because you don't like, whoa, they got up, what they got up this one sleeve here? Like, man, they're not gonna run up the same way if you come looking for the bully. But if we get out of this and we, trying to duck and dodge the bully, we can't see in the 360. The bully's still gonna sneak up on you and it's gonna knock you out. And then when you wake up, you're gonna be sitting there like, see, and now you're gonna be discouraged. So my whole thing is expect the hurdles, plan for the hurdles. They will come. The more prepared you are for the hurdles, the easier to be to navigate it. You see what I'm saying? And so, but also you can't care what other people think. You got to stay out of your own way. You can't care because at the end of the day, remember what I told you, they truly don't care about what you got going on. Only you do. So you can't be caring about what they think. And so, man, predict the hurdles. Know that they're going to come. Resistance is not an if, but it's only a matter of when.
Yeah. Ooh, that's strong, man. That's strong. That is strong. You said leadership, you should be anticipating what the potential pitfalls are going to be, even in your own character. That's how I feel. Even in your own character, if you know you're the type of person who has a hard time completing things, you're going to have to figure out some methodology to help you do that, and incorporate something into your daily routine. If you know that you succumb to peer pressure, you're going to have to change your circle. People are going to get mad at you. Like, I think it's really powerful that you said that because, as you're listening and watching this podcast, if you're thinking about making some shifts, I think that's so powerful. Write down the potential pitfalls of this, of what you're about to try to do. You know what I'm saying? That's huge, man. That's huge.
And one of the things that, and this is, I truly believe that this is why people fail their New Year's resolutions at such a high rate is because we try to implement something without taking something away. And so for every action, there's a reaction. So if I'm going to say, hey, I'm finna start getting up and going to the gym every day, there has to be something that you put on the back burner because there's been something you've been doing with that time. And so you can't expect to come in and pry something brand new into your life without taking something away. And so we have to be ready for whatever sacrifices comes with the journeys that we want to take. And so, like with these things with the goals that you're setting as a result of listening to this, understand that there will have to be a sacrifice. If this is my new goal, this is where I want to get. Now, don't just put that goal there. What am I willing to sacrifice to make that goal happen? And in between there, somewhere you'll find what your resistance is.
Wow. That's strong, man. Yeah. You said people implement new things without taking anything off of their plate. That's an entrepreneur thing right there, man. I think, that's what catches a lot of us up, and that's what catches me up too. That's what I'm learning is that you can't do everything. Like I said, I'm unsubscribing. I'm taking myself out of things because I'm just like, all of y'all can't be talking to me at once. I'm focusing on doing this right here. And I'm going to really dig in until I see what I want to see in this particular thing. And once I do, then I'm going to change. I heard a guy who said it like this. He said, you ever take a magnifying glass and like light the ant on fire in the sun? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He said, that's what your focus is like. He said, you gotta only be focused on a laser beam on that one thing until that catches fire. And then once that catches fire, then you could maybe shift to something else and then catch that on fire, and if that time gets shorter, you know what I mean? You think you're losing time. Well, I got to do all these things at once, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're actually wasting more time trying to do so many things than you would if you just applied that time to do one thing. You know what I'm saying? That's huge, man. That's huge. Okay, listen, man. We hitting an hour. I want to be respectful of your time.
Appreciate it. It's been good.
Yeah, man. Do you have time to give us a thought exercise before we wrap this up?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, bet, man. So our thought exercises are something actionable we can take advantage of as we close out the episode, as we move on with our day. As you go getting on a train, bus, whatever you're doing, and you're moving on from this, I want you to take the thought exercises and implement them immediately, because that's how we really capitalize on what we're learning, is by implementing, applying the knowledge that we have. So Quentin, if you're ready with our thought exercise, man, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So so I need to give the listeners something that they can do um in their time that kind of maximize based off what we talked about. Is that what I'm
Absolutely.
understanding? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's something that I challenge folks to. And a lot of us are either working remote, or a lot of us are either starting to go back in person. So about 60% of my work week is remote. I spend about more than 70%. I go into the office half a day on Friday, and I go for a full day on Tuesday. And so before, when I was commuting every day, I had about 45 minutes to an hour commute. Now, there's a lot of things that you can do in the car in that time. You talk to somebody, you listen to music, or you could do something that is going to maximize that time. And so I want you to think about times throughout your day that is not being occupied by anything important, and what can you place in that spot that is going to better you. That's not going to be painful. So that phone call that you might have, hey man, you know what? I'm gonna call you on the way home from work. I'm dedicating this 30-minute drive to work to listening to this audiobook, because guess what? That's 2.5 hours a week, and the average audiobook is 5 hours, which means I could read 2 books a month in time that is already sitting there. That time is already there. I don't have to substitute that time out with anything. You know what I'm saying? And so people, go work out. They go work out and they got their music playlist. I understand the music might get you hyped, but what can you listen to that is going to take you to the next level? What can you implement in some time that you already have that's not much of a sacrifice, that you can get something out of? Because right now we have a lot of time that just sits around that is just time. And we don't get time back. And so what I encourage people to do is look throughout your day. What time is idle? And idle time is the devil's playground. Idle mind is the devil's playground, right?
Yeah.
So Sam used to get. So we don't want our mind to be idle. And so if we have different points throughout, even on our lunch break, listen, well, Mr. Harris or Quentin, I don't commute to work. I remote. I got kids, this, that, and the other. You do get a lunch break. You do get times throughout your day when you have a time to just chill out, and there's nothing spent there. And so I don't want you to use your self-love time, the time that you would be moving and doing something anyway. What can you put in that space that will maximize something? So whether that's your commute to work, whether it's your time at the gym, maybe it's that 30 to 40 minutes before you go to sleep. What can you put in that space that will take you to the next level, and you don't really have to move anything around? So that is my thought exercise for people. That's my challenge to folks, because I have found, for me, I wasn't much for one. I got a lot of books back here, and these are good books, and I've taken the time to go through them. But I know for me, reading an audio book and just having a notebook that I'm able to drop notes in and like, hey, ooh, this was a good, man. What line was this? Oh, 51 minutes, 30 seconds. Cool. Let me write this down. I'm gonna come back to that. And so that works for me. And so I've been able to get in a lot of books over the last year by just substituting time that I would have spent on the phone, or I would have spent listening to the new Donda album, and putting on an audio book, right? And making sure that, hey, I'm gonna get my 30 minutes in the morning in on this audio book. And so that way I can apply this knowledge later. And so, yeah.
That's a huge hack, y'all. A lot of us spend a lot of time consuming, but we don't invest in our mental space. You know what I'm saying?
Goes back to that. The knowledge is free, man. And there's a lot of stuff that you can just go online and just go on YouTube. And a lot of these audiobooks are just sitting there. All you got to do is hit play. And so, yep.
That's huge, man. Listen, y'all, go out and implement, utilize the dead space in your day that you would have spent scrolling, or listening to new albums, or watching funny stuff. I like to watch Country Wayne sometimes, but I be having to catch myself. I'm like, bruh, come on, get it together, and we all got to do that.
Country Wayne ain't gonna get your bills paid.
That's right.
Country Wayne, and you, every time you watch Country Wayne, he getting money. You
That's
see what I'm saying?
That's right.
He getting money put in his pocket. So, I ain't hating on Country Wayne, but at the end of the day, that's time that you will never get back. That's his time that you just put into his pocket. Why not invest that into something that's going to bring you something?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, y'all invest your time. That's a big one for me. I like to listen to books and audiobooks and stuff. And so I'm gonna redouble my efforts to occupy more space, man, with books and good seminars. And they're all on YouTube. They are for free on YouTube. It's great. It's great. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you being here and for you taking some time, and for that great thought exercise on how to maximize the time that is just kind of dead and sitting there in our day, man. That's a game changer. You give that a year, oh man, you'd be a totally different human just by the information
Absolutely.
you've received. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for that. I really appreciate it. Is there anything
No
you
problem.
want to let us know about before we wrap this up, or you okay?
Folks can, if you ever want to get more information, definitely feel free to reach out. You can follow me on my platforms. I'm on Instagram the most, so you can follow me at Instagram. My handle is the Quentin Harris. You see my name here, so just put the before it at the Quentin Harris. If you're in the Chicagoland area and need a car, you can look me up at Just Quick Little Runs. JQLR stands for Just Quick Little Runs. And then or you could go and see pretty much all of this stuff at my website, which is hybridfocusconsulting.com. So if you have a small business and want a free consultation, I would love to look and see what you have going on and potentially brainstorm with you some growth possibilities. And it's not always even about growth. Sometimes it's about making what we have more efficient. And
Right.
so if you feel like you're in a space where you're not as efficient as what you could be, give me a call. I'll take a look and I'll put a personal proposal for you together, and we can see how we can help your business.
That's love, man. Listen, y'all hit him up. Y'all hit him up if you need Turo, any educational things, man. He got it on lock over here. Listen, man, I love
Appreciate it.
what you're doing. I love watching your growth, and the things that you're doing with your brother and everything, man. Super encouraging, and I'm glad you're out here crushing it, man. Thank you for being a part of Empower You podcast and pouring into us today.
Appreciate it. No problem. Thanks for having me. Glad I could be here.
Yeah, man. So listen, y'all, go implement, go do something, fill up that dead space, and let's make this happen. Okay. Thank y'all for being here. I will talk to y'all on another episode. Peace.